Okay. If you don't mind, I'll start with the opening statement. And before I get to the opening statement, I just want to let the committee and board members know that Teams is experiencing some lag times, and sometimes you may appear to be disconnected. If that happens, just stay on. It has been reconnecting. And if you feel that you miss anything during that lag time, please let us know and staff will be happy to explain what you may have missed. Good morning, board, staff, and members of the public. After my statement, the chairman will open this meeting and explain the rules for this electronic meeting. Please keep your microphone on mute when you are not speaking. The technical support team may proactively mute participants if the microphone is picking up on background noise. Board members should check to make sure the microphone is not muted before speaking. You may text me at 540-336-3948 at any time during the meeting if you need technical support, and an IT tech will call your cell phone to assist. I now turn the meeting over to Committee Chairman Sultan. Thank you.
Thank you, Jewel. In accordance with the governor's state of emergency declaration and executive orders regarding the COVID-19 pandemic, the Loudoun County Board of Supervisors Continuity Ordinance and General Assembly 2020 Budget Amendments 28 and 137, Loudoun Water will meet today in an electronic meeting. In compliance with these special procedures, only action items necessary to continue operations of Loudoun Water and the discharge of its lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities will be discussed during today's meeting. Reports and other meeting information are available on board docs. Public notice and meeting access information was provided on the Loudoun Water website. A recording of the meeting will be available in board docs at the following link: goboarddocs.com/va/lwva/board.nsf. Board members wishing to speak are reminded to press unmute and identify themselves by name so that staff can accurately capture comments. All items will be recommended to the October 8th 2020 board meeting. Oh, I think I have the wrong date there.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's a typo. That should be the November board meeting. That's my fault. I'm sorry.
The board secretary will now take a roll call attendance of the committee members.
Thank you. Mr. Sultan?
Here.
Mr. Bonfils?
Here.
Mr. Moody?
Here.
Ms. Sursakar? Ms. Sursakar? Oh, thank you very much. Okay. And Mr. Koblis is also here.
Here.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Okay, can we get a motion to approve the agenda?
Make the motion to approve.
I'll second the motion. Roll call, Jewel?
Yes, sir. Sultan?
Yes.
Mr. Bonfils?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Ms. Sursakar?
Yes.
Unanimous, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to the first action item, the approval of a planning task order for Waterford feasibility study.
Good morning, board members. My name is Andrew Beattie, and today I will be presenting on the Waterford Water Feasibility Study. So before I dive into the details of the task order itself, I just wanted to highlight that this project has come forward through Loudoun County's Community Water and Wastewater Program. The program itself is a partnership between Loudoun County and Loudoun Water, and it is used to address water and wastewater issues that communities within Loudoun County may be experiencing. We have a lot of experience in this program and have done projects throughout the years on this. And as well as that, I just would like to point out that the work performed by Loudoun Water in this program and as well as our consultants does get reimbursed by the county. Just to highlight some of the previous projects that have come through this program. As I said, we've done this for a number of years. The town of Hillsborough came through in 2016, and we did Paonian Springs. But today we are focusing on the community of Waterford. I'll just take a pause there if there are any questions on what the program is, or if that's okay. Okay. So a little bit about this, the background on this project. The community of Waterford submitted an application in early 2019 to help address their water issues, the issues with individual wells. And whenever they submitted their application, they had initially proposed a study area of about 95 parcels. And this is shown by the yellow highlighted parcels on the map here to the right. As Waterford's application went through the review committee to seek acceptance into the program, Loudoun County staff as well as Loudoun Water felt it would perhaps be more beneficial to enlarge the study area to ensure that we were getting a wider view of the community, and there may be some other benefits to looking at the larger area. The proposed study area, which is the black line on the map there, is actually the same as the Loudoun Water's existing sanitary sewer service district in the community. And so we felt that that was a good starting point to move forward with. As well as that, it's important to note that this community is a National Historic Landmark, and the community is very keen to ensure that designation remains in place. So far, over the course of the development of the scope, there has been tremendous engagement with the community. We, Loudoun Water, as well as our consultant Dewberry, and staff from the county have met several times with the program coordinators who are residents within Waterford and who volunteer to help gather the information from the community and who information passes back and forth through with. As well as we've met with representatives from the Waterford Citizens Association and representatives from the Waterford Foundation. It was through these meetings that we were able to acquire a lot of the input from the community and to incorporate that feedback into the development of the scope to ensure that we would be addressing the concerns that the community felt were out there, as well as making sure that we met all the requirements of the water and wastewater program itself. We, county staff and Loudoun Water, did a community presentation, a pre-recorded virtual presentation in early September to present the scope of work as well as the proposed change to the study area, and feedback we have received has been positive, and I would say an endorsement to move forward with the work as proposed. So that's encouraging. So listed here before you are the main elements within the scope of work. I'll just highlight two of them being the main bulk of the work. Those are the groundwater supply development study, which will entail some monitoring of the wells within Waterford and some groundwater modelling to try and understand the current hydrologic and aquifer response to the existing conditions, as well as be able to look to see if there would be any impacts should a future well be installed within the community. The other item are the water treatment and distribution system evaluations. Overall, we'll be assessing 5 different options to see if they are technically feasible, and then those options will then be ranked relative to one another to determine a recommendation for the community that they can choose to act on. This is the Cip Project Snapshot. It's project COM 63 for your reference. Typically, in the past, we have budgeted $150,000 for these feasibility studies, but due to the unique nature of this project and the input from the community, you will see that the proposed budget is a little bit higher, but this number will be reflected in the 2021 CIP book. So as I said, our consultant for this project will be Dewberry, and this is a breakdown of their budget per the scope of work, and it totals $217,500. And with that, here's the recommended motion. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yes, hi, Andrew. Want to ask a question? You had stated that due to the unique nature of this work, how is this study different from the other studies that were previously done?
It's really just the feedback from the community. The Waterford citizens are very engaged and want to ensure that we are looking at particular items during this feasibility study to ensure that we don't get lost as a project should it move forward. Things such as research into the historic landmark designation, as well as actually doing some field work at this stage in a feasibility study, such as installing the data loggers in the wells and things like that. And typically, we would do that at a later stage in a project.
The next follow-up question is how are the cost of this study, is it consistent? I just want to understand, is it consistent to the previous studies, or do the unique natures increase the cost considerably? Because I'm not familiar with the other studies.
It's a little bit larger. Previous studies have been closer to that $150,000 mark, and so this is a little bit more expensive. But as I said, we county staff and Loudon Water, we did present this to the community, and there were no issues or concerns that we heard about the cost of this work.
And was the company Dewberry, were they the ones that did the previous studies, or is this, or do they have?
Yes, they have experience. We've worked with them before on these studies. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Andrew, Mr. Bonfils has his hand up.
Certainly, Mr. Bonfils.
Sorry, I was bouncing the mute mic. So, if I understand this correctly, this will all be covered by a purchase order and be repaid to Loudon Water for our services by the county.
Correct. Yes.
Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes.
And the reason that the history of this is that for many of these water projects, they come to Loudon Water for our expertise, and so in managing these kinds of contracts. So I appreciate it, and I'm ready to make the motion whenever the chair calls for it. Thank you.
Mr. Sultan has a question.
I assume that this cost has specifically been run by the county for approval.
Correct. Yes, it has, and they are comfortable with the costs.
Okay, I'm ready for a motion.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Goblis. Yes.
So this is a kind of a follow-up to Marty's question. So they have approved the increase to the budget, and is that the process? We get the new costs, and then we go back to the county for the increased budget, and then we get that approval before we move forward. Is that correct?
Whenever if the Loudon Water Board approves this project moving forward, we will then let the county know, and they will approve the disbursement for this amount.
Okay, so we approve it first, and then the county approves what we have approved.
Yeah, it's a little bit back and forth. The county already knows that this is the amount, and they've said that that yes, this is acceptable, and so it's just the process.
Okay, I was just curious. Thank you. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, the motion indicates that the task order approval would be contingent upon issuance of a purchase order from Loudoun County. So I think we're covered. Okay, any other discussion? Can I get a motion?
I make the recommended motion. This is Jim, and let's place it on consent.
I agree. I second that motion.
Roll call vote.
Yes.
Mr. Sultan,
Yes.
Mr. Bonfils,
Yes.
Mr. Moody,
Yes.
and Ms. Sursakar.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Unanimous, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay, let's go to the next item, a task order for professional advisor services from Milestone Reservoir.
Can you all hear me?
I can hear you.
Great. Good morning, everybody. I'm here today to request approval and award of a task order for the Milestone Reservoir Professional Services Advisor Services to Black & Veatch. So I just wanted to provide a reminder of some information we went through the last time I was here for the quarry. Our procurement policy, in accordance with the VPPA, has several criteria that a project must meet in order to use alternative delivery. In addition, we must use a professional advisor to determine what type of alternative delivery makes sense for a given project. So Black & Veatch acted as our professional advisor and guided Loudoun Water staff through an alternative delivery evaluation process. And through that process, the team determined that construction management at risk was the preferred method. And then in June, the board approved the use of CMAR for this project. So one of the primary drivers of moving to alternative delivery was the ability to better identify and assign risks associated with hard rock tunneling and the long-term impact on operations and maintenance. So staff selected the CMAR approach because it allows Loudoun Water to benefit from the investment and institutional knowledge that Arcadis has, and to obtain real-time input from a contractor with heavy civil experience as we move through the design process. So working closely with a contractor through the design will allow Loudoun Water to have more control over the construction cost and to make more informed design decisions. So, So what have we been doing for the last few months? Well, we've been busy planning the procurement and working through decisions related to the construction contract, including the decision to use a time and materials type contract structure for the construction phase. We established the evaluation committee and evaluation criteria, and we've met with other utilities both locally and across the Southeast to discuss their experience with CMAR. We also started reviewing and updating the risk register, drafting the request for qualifications. We did some high-level coordination with the county, and we've done some outreach with interested contractors. So we have met with 9 general contractors and subs, and several have expressed a great deal of interest in this project. We've also been preparing for an industry outreach event. In anticipation of the upcoming procurement, we'll be holding a webinar to let folks know more about the project ahead of the procurement. So we have our own video shot of the site, and I'm going to show you a short clip of that. And if you want to see a longer version, there is a link in your board write-up. So upon approval of this task order, we'll be able to move full steam ahead with the CMAR procurement, and we hope to have a CMAR on board next fall. Are there any questions before we take a look at the video? Okay. So we are standing here at Belmont Ridge Road. This is actually annotated, but I'll just kind of walk you through it. And the quarry or Milestone Reservoirs is out here. You can see the W&OD trail. It's also marked by the Dominion power lines. In the back, you can see Quarry D, and Quarry B, and then the entrance to the site is with Jack Pit Lane. So you can also see Goose Creek is kind of hidden here in the back. You can't see it because of the trees, but we'll get another view of it in just a moment. So now we are looking towards Belmont Ridge Road, and we are about to cross over Goose Creek. Is the video playing for everybody?
Yes.
It's
thank
just
you,
fine.
Sarita.
Pauses
Okay.
a little bit.
Okay,
Yeah, it's
all right.
fine.
Well, we're almost, okay, good. We're almost done. So you can see the WNOD trail back here and Quarry B in the background. This is the entrance ramp into the quarry and the AB tunnel, which connects Quarry A and Quarry B. That will be plugged as part of our project. You have a better view of Goose Creek, and you can see how much higher it is than the bottom of the quarry. It's a really great perspective. And then the wall near the quarry access ramp, this was the location of the high wall stabilization project that was completed earlier this year.
Savita, Miss Sursakar has a question.
Sure.
I will have my hand up. I'll ask my question later. I want her to complete her presentation. Thank you.
Oops. Okay, so I'm going to switch gears a little bit and move into more specifics about the procurement process and the details of the task order. So our procurement policy requires that we use a professional advisor to help us evaluate the use of alternative delivery. And if we elect to use an alternative delivery method, we must use a professional advisor to develop the RFP, which is a request for proposal, and have them assist us in evaluating those proposals. So the VPPA requires that the CMAR process is a two-step process, which consists of a request for qualifications phase, followed by a request for proposal phase. And I'll go into more detail on each of those phases on the following slides. So this slide,
I think this is,
go ahead.
I think this is a good time to sort of interrupt you and ask you before you move on to the next slide.
Sure.
I was just curious. I wanted to understand when Land and Water elects a professional advisor for this particular criteria, what are some of the criteria? What are some of the factors that we're looking at, and how are we electing, or how are we choosing our professional advisor in this context?
So in this case, we actually interviewed two firms that have BOAs with us, and I'm sorry, actually, that was a different project. I apologize. We actually just took a look at the BOA consultants that we had available to us, and we went through some of the experience that they had. Arcadis is our design engineer, and so, of course, we chose not to use them as a professional advisor because we wanted them to remain as our design engineer in the event that we might have chosen a different alternative delivery method. And Black and Beach had some really great experience doing CMAR, both locally and of course across the country. They have done CMAR projects with Fairfax County and some other utilities.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that answers my question.
Sure.
I was just curious to know, what are some of the criteria you would use. Thank you for that, Savita. Please carry on.
Sure. So this slide you guys have seen before. Last time I was here, it's just an overview of the process. And last time I was here, we were talking about approval to use CMAR, and now we are moving into the procurement, which is shown in red. So we'll just step through the procurement process, since a good portion of this task order contains services to support Land and Water staff with the procurement. So the next thing that we'll be doing is advertising the RFQ. We'll receive qualification packages, we'll evaluate and score those packages, and then we'll develop a short list of contractors that'll move on to the RFP phase. So Black & Veatch will provide services in support of our pre-SOQ meeting and our site visits. They're also will prepare review memos for each of the qualifications packages that we receive, and they'll participate as non-voting members of the evaluation committee. So once the evaluation committee has determined the shortlist, they will prepare a recommendation memo documenting the shortlist and our committee recommendation. At the same time, Black & Veatch will also be working with Loudon Water staff to develop the contracts that are going to be used for pre-construction services and the construction phase. So once the shortlist has been developed, we'll move into the RFP phase. Just like the RFQ phase, we'll have a pre-proposal meeting and we'll give the contractors one more chance to see the site. And similar to the RFQ phase, the evaluation committee will meet to evaluate the proposals. But during this phase, the offerers will also be participating in an interview that'll be used as part of the evaluation. So Black & Veatch will support and participate in the RFP phase in a similar manner to the RFQ phase. And then lastly, once the evaluation committee has selected the CMAR, Loudon Water staff will negotiate the terms and conditions of the pre-construction services contract with support from Black & Veatch. Upon completion of those negotiations, we will then come to the board with a recommendation to award a contract to the CMAR contractor. So while the overall process for selecting a contractor is relatively straightforward, there are actually quite a few decisions and considerations that staff must evaluate in order to ensure that we select the correct contractor for this project. So Black & Veatch has a lot of expertise in heavy civil and CMAR, and they'll be able to support us well with the evaluations and the contract negotiations. And this is important since this is the first time we are actually doing a CMAR project at Loudon Water. Are there any questions on this?
No, there's no question, Savita, but I just want to applaud. I'm since I've been on the board, I'm doing this the first time because I'm extremely impressed with how you're doing this presentation. Everything is well outlined. It's very well self-explanatory. You know, there's you went in the details and you offered the minorics. It's just very well laid out. So a huge applaud to you and your team for that.
Thank you.
And as I said, I'm very, very impressed. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so just moving on a little bit more with the scope. So there are three main areas of work, including the procurement assistance, which is what I just discussed. The other main piece of work will be working on concept progression. So we'll be taking the opportunity in parallel with the procurement to revisit some of the project elements with Arcadis, our design engineer, and Black & Veatch to see if any of the original design and operation assumptions warrant further discussion or change. So for example, the original concept for the pump station was conceived before Trap Rock was operational. In that time, we have learned a lot more about how the plant operates and how plant operations may impact the quarry. So we may revisit some of those assumptions or thoughts that we had to see if there's any changes we'd like to make before the CMAR comes on board. We're also going to use this time to start integrating Loudon Water and the design team and Black & Veatch, progress the risk register so that we are ready to hit the ground running once the CMAR is on board. The last task is project management, and this will just allow regular communication with Loudon Water staff and keep the procurement on track and to manage the schedule and budget of the task order. Any questions? The scope? Okay, so this is the fee that staff negotiated with Black & Veatch for their services. So the first two rows are for procurement assistance, and this task order, this assistance will last approximately 10 months. I see a hand raised.
Mr. Sultan has a question.
Sure.
Just a matter of interest, I assume we'll get notified when the webinar occurs, and I'd just like to sit in on it to hear what's going on.
Absolutely.
That's all I had, just that.
Okay, great. Anybody else?
Mr. Moody has a question.
Sure.
Yes, you had mentioned in the preliminary process to determine Black & Veatch as the vendor to provide the professional advisory services. You mentioned there was another company. Just curious, how did Black & Veatch come in? Did they submit a proposal? Both companies submit a proposal, or did you, from the procurement process, or did you request one based off of the your initial rounds of interviews? Just want to understand how that acquisition process.
So I actually misspoke when I said that we interviewed 2 people. That was actually for a different project. Actually, the one I spoke on last last month, and Black & Veatch did interview for that one in particular. So in this case, we just looked at the firms that we have a BOA with, and we looked at the qualifications. We do have Arcadis is our design engineer, and we decided to go with Black & Veatch as they had some of the more local experience with CMAR.
Okay, so it's really more of a sole source acquisition is what you.
Yes, but yes, it is a task order under our basic ordering agreement. When they did, in terms of this particular task order, they did submit a proposal to us, and we have negotiated that with them. So this is not the original fee that was put forward.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Ms. Sursakar has a question.
Sure. Oops. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I don't hear the question.
Ms. Sursakar, I believe you're muted.
Savita, so
Yes.
I just wanted to ask you, the other direct cost here comes down to 4,000. I'm just curious to know, is that going to go up? You know,
So the direct costs
what are the criteria for that? That's the reason why I'm asking this question.
So other direct costs are expenses. So it's expenses. So a part of the task order, we are assuming that the meetings will be virtual. And then we assume at some point, hopefully COVID will allow us to meet more in person, in which case Black & Veatch does have a few experts that live elsewhere in the country. So those direct costs are expenses related to flights and hotels. It's quite possible if we are not able to meet in person, then we will not spend those direct costs.
So on that note there, if we have, you know, folks who are, you know, are living, you know, outside the state, or for some reason cannot make it to the meeting, you know, directly, I don't understand. I mean, can we not have them, you know, talk to us via, you know, conference call?
Yes, they will absolutely be a part of the meetings. They just won't be traveling. So those, we might not use the money allocated for expenses. Does that make sense? So they'll participate in the meeting no matter what. We were hoping that at some point we'd be able to move to in-person meetings, in which cases they would fly here. And those direct costs incurred would be for their flights and for their hotels. If we are not able to meet in person, they will participate virtually through a Teams meeting. So we'll still benefit from their experience. We just won't be able to meet with them face to face.
Okay, I still am a little concerned about that, but okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no other questions, then I have the recommended motion in front of you.
Mr. Sultan, would you like to call for the motion?
I have one thought, and I want to
Sure.
see what the rest of the committee thinks, is that I think this should be an action item since it's a new process. I think we should give the board a chance to explore this a little further. I think it's good. I think it's a good idea, but I'm suggesting that we do this as an action item. Anybody else have comment?
Marty, I have a question. Why are you proposing an action item for this? Is
to give a more thorough look by the rest of the board.
Yeah, I do understand that, but I just wanted to understand what is the reasoning behind, asking for an action item. Is there any concerns? I mean, I'm just trying to understand why you would ask for that.
I could be wrong. The only thing that I'm thinking of is that this is a whole new process, and I think it's a good process, but I was thinking that the board may want to take a little more detailed look at it rather than just on a consent. Why do you feel you'd rather leave it as a consent?
So, I mean, I can also just come and give an informational item if you'd like to learn more about the CMAR process.
Jim, you have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I do. I think that that it should go to should not go to consent. Should go to general discussion, and like to see this presentation given to the full board, because it is a new process and it's not a it's not just a standard services contract that's under $500,000 that we would more traditionally we would put it on consent. I would think, but in this case, since it's a new process, let's go ahead and put plan to have the full presentation or an abbreviated presentation. Your presentation was very good, so thank you.
Sure. Mr. Koblis has a question.
Yeah, thanks, Jewel. Have we already, I don't remember, have we already explained this process to the full board, or was that just the last CIP meeting? I can't remember, I'm sorry.
So I did present these slides, this slide up above. I didn't go into a lot of detail about the CMAR procurement process itself, but I'm happy to do that.
Okay, well then I agree with Marty, but it's up to the committee.
Well, I'll make the motion that we move this motion forward and put it on action item. Can we get a vote?
I need a second.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay, yeah, we need a second.
Yes, sir.
Jim Bonfield seconds.
Thank you. And roll call, Mr. Sultan,
Yes.
Mr. Bonfils,
Yay.
Mr. Moody,
Yes.
and Ms. Ursicar.
Yes.
Thank you. Unanimous, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Next item.
Good morning, everybody.
Next item, go ahead. Approval of amendment to design task order for Russell Branch Sewer Pump Station.
Mr. Lipinski, did you have a question? Tom, did you have a question? I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I did have a thought, and I don't know, I guess I'll ask Mr. Sultan. There was a couple questions that came up in the last couple items, maybe about our professional engineering services. It seemed like Mr. Moody had a question about the selection of Black and Veatch, and Ms. Ursicar was asking some questions around the other direct costs. Would it be of an advantage if I just took maybe 2 or 3 minutes to just talk about the engineering and how we hire the consulting engineers? It might actually help a little bit in the discussion on this project going forward, if you'd like me to do that.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Okay.
I'll try to keep it brief, but I'll see if this helps at all to just put into perspective how we hire our engineering firms. We use the term BOA, Basic Ordering Agreement, but what it generally is like a multi-year general engineering contract, and we have 2 or 3, or I should say 3 or 4 different classifications of BOAs. And the main one that we have, but in most of the work that's brought forward to you all, is for firms that are under what we call our environmental BOA. We have 4 engineering firms. And the way we do that is we put an RFP out on the street, and then the firms propose, and then we shortlist and ultimately we select firms to provide us engineering services over the term of that BOA. Typically, it is a 5-year. As a matter of fact, the current contracts that we have with the 4 firms, Hazen and Sawyer, Black and Veatch, HDR, and Arcadis, are all set to expire in February of next year. So we actually just put an RFP out to go through the process of accepting proposals and then ultimately selecting firms to provide us engineering services for the next 5 years. Once we have those firms on retainer for us under general engineering services, we then work to select as a need comes up. We'll try to match up the right firm to that particular project's needs, and then we'll negotiate a task order with them so that they can provide the services to us. And that task order is done. The work under that task order is done by them under a time and materials type of approach. So when we approve a task order, just like you just did for Black and Veatch, it's a budget with a not to exceed amount. And as we go through those projects, there's a scope that's developed, but as we execute them, invariably things change along the way. And it's nice to have sort of this not to exceed budget. It allows us and the consultant the flexibility that if we need to adjust the scope along the way, it's a little easier. We can delete scope and add scope. And we do that pretty regularly on many projects. But ultimately what happens is when we are adjusting scope along the way, the budgets usually are adequate even with the changes in scope. And the project coming forward is going to be one where, because of some changes in the project, especially with respect to schedule, we couldn't absorb the changes we needed to make with the consultant within the original budget. So just to kind of keep in mind that the work that we do is a negotiated task order with them, and then the work is generally billed as time and materials. And then if they needed more money than what the original budget was, that's got to be authorized by us, and in many times it's got to come to the board for authorization for changes. So I don't know if that helped at all, but if there's any questions on that, I'd be happy to take any.
There's one more addition that the BOA, which is a basic ordering agreement, allows Loudon Water to not have to go out for a separate procurement each time there's another small task, and that's a big savings in time and effort.
That's correct. Yeah, that's one of the major advantages of having that tool.
Hi, this is Keith. Thank you very much. That definitely explains it. Definitely familiar with using BOAs and BPAs. So right. I'm assuming there was pre-negotiated rates on your BOA with all the 4 vendors already. So you're even working off of that.
That is correct. The rates are negotiated, and then they're allowed annually to adjust those rates with another negotiation with us. That's right.
And with the negotiation, I'm assuming you got discounts off of those BOA negotiated rates.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Angeline here. So thank you so much. That was very, very helpful, not only for the purpose of today's meeting, but also for future meetings as well. So I'm truly grateful for you for that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Koblis has a question.
Yeah, Marty said that it's for small tasks, but it's not for small tasks, is it? I mean, these are large engineering tasks that can be taken off of this BOA.
Yes, you know what, offhand, and if Brian Stone is on, he usually is pretty good at remembering what the limits are in the Virginia procurement law, but I think we can award.
It's $2.5 million per year.
There you go. Thank you, Amy.
For a single firm.
Or Sarah, thank you. Yeah, we can go up to $2.5 million on a task order. We don't go that high. We don't think we ever have, but we have that ability under the Virginia procurement law.
What I read was, small relative to a large contract, like for a treatment plant or something like that. It's relative, only relative.
Well, okay, I think. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, let's go with the Russell Branch pumps. Is there somebody with a comment? If there's no comment, let's go ahead with the next item.
All right, good morning, everybody. I'm Kathleen Witten. I'm going to present the amendment to the design task order for the Russell Branch Sewer Pump Station. Hoping that my clicking works. Okay, here we go. So the Russell Branch Sewer Pump Station, formerly we called it the North Goose Creek Sewer Pump Station. It's located basically at the corner of Route 7 and Belmont Ridge Road. It will replace the existing Belmont Ridge Interim Sewer Pump Station, which is off of the old Belmont Ridge Road. And just something to note here, you can see how close to the joint land management area the Russell Branch Pump Station is where it is located. So to give you some background, it's been a while since I came to talk about this project. The Belmont Ridge Interim Pump Station is one of the oldest sewer pump stations in our system. It was put into service in 2002, and it was just to accommodate the Toll Brothers subdivision that was going in and around it. It wasn't built to accommodate the entire sewer shed. At the time, we weren't sure exactly how it was going to develop, and the developer built this station for us. So in 2016, I think we went out and looked at all of our large assets and we rated them and found that the Belmont Ridge Interim Pump Station needed a large rehabilitation on the order of millions of dollars. So we decided, why would we invest that type of money into an old pump station that didn't serve the entire area that we needed to serve, and decided to move to design and build the permanent pump station that serves the entire shed. So in 2017, we engaged HDR to help us with this planning and design for this new pump station. So as you can imagine, 2017 was kind of a long time ago. So we started, like I said, with HDR in the beginning of 2017, and we immediately had to engage the landowner who owns that parcel to get access to be able to do our survey and our geotechnical borings on his property. And it became clear pretty quickly that he was in litigation with VDOT for the taking of the expansion of Belmont Ridge Road. Most of that was on his property. And the way that VDOT works is they just do a condemnation and then they worry about the negotiation for the land after the fact. So he was in litigation with VDOT when we started. So we knew that we weren't going to get an easement immediately because he wanted to make sure that he had everything done with them before he worked anything out with us. But that was fine because we knew we were going to take some time to, do our design and plan. So in 2018, we got a couple of plan submissions. And at that point, we had submitted to Loudoun County, and they had come back and told us that we needed to do a floodplain study. Because this property is so close to Goose Creek, and there's a tributary that runs through it that feeds Goose Creek, there's definitely some floodplain on it. So that slowed us down a little bit. And so we released the contingency that was authorized at the end of 2018 to try and help pay for, the extended time that the floodplain study took. And as we were working through that, we found that the county was actually looking for an easement for the entire floodplain that is on this property. And we were only impacting a very, very, very small piece of it. And so the landowner was not willing to grant the county that floodplain easement. So we spent a good amount of 2019 trying to work on that out with the county. Eventually, they did grant our waiver request to not have to give them all of that floodplain easement at the beginning of this year. But in the meantime, the county ratified the comprehensive plan amendment, and I was here to talk about the Jlma planning. And so this really affects this pump station, and I can show you why on the next map here. So this is the map that I showed you at the beginning. And this blue area is the shed that the existing pump station can actually pick up. If I turn on the green area, so the Russell Branch pump station as it's currently designed will be able to sewer the green area and the blue area. So we're basically doubling the size of the area that the pump station can serve. But then you see the Jlma right here. Well, actually, all of this blue area, Jlma East, we're calling it, can actually drain to the Russell Branch pump station. So that kind of has caused us to pause a little bit and take a step back and kind of think about, do we want to sewer this Jlma area to the Russell Branch? The Goose Creek is right here. So obviously the gradient falls this way. But as you can see, just the land area, we'd be doubling, again, the size of the pump station that we needed. So for now, what we're going to do, what we have is the original task order was for 433,000, and the contingency, which I told you we've already authorized and given HDR. So our total authorization, which we got approval for in 2017 from the board, was 455,000. Okay, so the original amendment that we released, like I said, it included more time because the schedule got elongated. We did a little bit more planning. We looked at using a suction lift pump instead of the traditional dry pit submersible pumps that we normally use, just because our wet well is so deep here. We decided against that because we would have had to do 2-stage instead of 1-stage. And the other thing that we looked at that was kind of a planning thing was our stairwell design. So it's actually a fire code issue. In the past, we haven't had to have a stairwell. We've always had an open stair. And so we questioned why HDR was designing a stairwell. And so they had to point us to the code, which we discussed thoroughly. So that's basically where the amendment money went to. And so this new amendment that we're requesting today mainly will go to things due to the schedule elongation. So project management time, meetings. The county actually required us to get 2 building permits, one for the pump station, the new pump station to be built, and one for a demolition permit to get rid of the old station. So that doubled our cost and building permit. We had to do a whole nother application, which we didn't originally foresee. And then due to the schedule elongation, Loudon Water typically reviews and revises our general conditions and our supplementary conditions at least once a year. So that has happened a couple times during this extended time. So they had to revise the front ends, which is our general conditions, and then some technical specifications. So when we decided to go with Procore, that meant that we had to update our electronic communication specification. We've had changes in asset management, so those had to be updated. So those are kind of all of our schedule type issues that we ran into. And then we did make a few design changes that were kind of out of scope of the original design, just based on some lessons learned that we've gone through with the Cortland sewer pump station and with Brambleton sewer pump station as those are in construction. So that all totals up to $33,000, and that is a negotiated rate with our, so they were asking for more. But we know that we're going to have to do a new design if we're going to implement all of that flow from the Jlma. So we negotiated it down to this amount. So if we add all of those up, so the original task order and these 2 amendments, we'd come out to $488,000. HDR is currently estimating the construction cost of the pump station to be $7.5 million. So we're at about 6%. We did do some industry metrics to try and see if that was a good number or a bad number. And we got some greenfield pump station design numbers from other Virginia utilities. And it's kind of all over the board. I guess pump stations are very dependent on the site conditions. So it's hard to compare, but we got answers anywhere between 6% and 25% when we went and looked at different pump station designs. So are there any questions on it, any of that before I move to the motion? Mr. Kobles?
Yeah, can you go back to the slide with the JLMA, please?
How to go back.
So I wasn't real clear why we are spending any money on this at all if the possibility of the JLMA will flow through this area is, it just seems like a huge waste of money if we're going to either add another site or whatever. I know we're trying to make this permanent, but you weren't clear on why we're doing anything on this site.
Okay. So originally we just wanted to replace the Belmont Ridge. So to do that, we needed to serve the royal blue and the green. So this design that we're seeking the amendment for was just to serve those two areas. So we want to kind of tie up this design and close this task order and be done with it, so that if we just want to serve these two areas, those plans are done, ready. However, unlikely that will happen, and we're going to have to do a redesign to include all this new flow. So I don't think that the pump station as it's designed today can handle this. So right now, the design accommodates about 1.1 MGD peak flow. If we add in this JLMA area, it's an additional 2.5 million gallons. So the pump station will have to be upgradable from basically where we are now, 1 million gallons to 3.5 million gallons. So it'll be similar to Brambleton, where we'll probably have 2 wet wells, we'll have empty spaces for extra pumps and that kind of thing, which we don't currently have in our design right now.
So I think you've answered my question saying that we're wasting our time doing this. Did I misunderstand what you said? I mean, we don't have to change the design if we're not going to build it.
Right. This amendment is just to close up the design that we have. So HDR has already done this work.
Why? We don't have to.
HDR has already done the work.
I know, but why do we have to pay even more money for them to finish it? Why don't we just stop it now if we're not going to use it?
Well, basically, they've already, we stopped them from working a while ago. We've been negotiating for over a year with them on this fee. So they haven't worked on it, and I don't think they're going to work on it anymore. But we have to pay them for the work that they did. So I guess is what this task order is.
This is just to pay them for work they've already done then. It's not to do additional work.
Yes, correct.
Okay. If they want the next job, maybe they can release us on this money. I know you negotiated it down 33,000. Anyway, it just seems throwing good money after bad.
Ms. Sursikar?
Hi, this is Angelina. I have my hand up. I just wanted to, on Mr. Kobla's point here, first of all, Mark, thank you for bringing that up. I really, these are the times when I really value, your presence in the meeting. With that, on that note, what I just want to say is that the work that has been previously done for this, is there a documentation? Is there anything in writing that we can sort of take a look at it? I would be interested. I know you said we're already paying them for the work that's done. So just reiterating what I said, I would definitely like to see paperwork that there is that for the work that's already been done, just for reference purposes.
Are you talking about the design itself, or are you talking about the task order invoices?
The design, the task order, all the documentations that are available that for the work that's already been done. And we, as discussed with you and Mark, that we're paying them for the work that's already done. It would be, as a board member, I would definitely be interested to understand what we're paying them for the work that's already been done.
Yeah,
I-
I can. Go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
Tom.
Yeah, we can share that information.
Okay,
This-
yeah, that would be wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Carla has a comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in, and Tom and Kathleen can correct me if I'm wrong, but so this design isn't necessarily a throwaway. I mean, in the event that something changes and Loudon Water is no longer the preferred provider in the JLMA, this design is valid and has to move forward. Am I correct? Because the pump station that's there is in need of some major rehab, and rather than rehab the temporary, we want to move forward with the permanent. And so, I mean, it's not necessarily a throwaway. And I think even if we're going to serve the JLMA, Kathleen, wouldn't we build off of what we have, like you said, to add those additional elements that could then serve the JLMA as well?
Yeah, that's 100% correct, Carla. I mean, the JLMA is still in flux. We may not build it, and certainly what we have now is totally, we're pretty much bid ready. So we could totally build off of that or put it out to bid if we had to. And like things like survey, geotechnical, some of the structural stuff, all of the electronics and the SCADA, I mean, all of that we can reuse. So it's not like we're starting from scratch. But we most likely will have to do some, rejigging to make the thing bigger.
Right, absolutely. Thank you.
And just to chime in a little bit, sorry, let me to add to that, the area in green is an area that also we need to be getting ready to serve. That is an area that there is some development activity underway to add some pressure for us to get this pump station located in its new location. So because it can't, the current station cannot pick up those flows. So we would have to move forward on something. We do have those pressures in addition to the JLMA pressures to get something moving forward. But we do all of what you all are saying is clearly something that we've been focusing on, which is we don't want to move forward with building this current station and the station in its current location as designed if we know that the JLMA flows are going to be coming this way, because we just want to make sure we leverage this opportunity to get it right. So it just, the timing ended up putting us in this position of these decisions that were made, and as was said earlier, we negotiated pretty heavily with HDR to get this where it is, and it is accounting for, in our view, proper compensation for the work that has been done.
Thanks, Roddy. Mr. Koblis?
Yeah, first of all, I always agree with that we should pay engineers for what they've done. But I heard two different things there. I heard Carla say that, and I think Kathleen, you kind of danced around it, that the pump station as designed will be used. There'll just be modifications to that design. And then I heard Roddy say that's not true. So which is true? Just kind of curious.
Well, I think there's portions of the design that we currently have that can be reused. Like, but we're not sure 100% until we actually get into the design of the new pump station, if we need to have a bigger motor on the pump, or can we reuse the same pumps and just add another one or two. So, I mean, there's questions there, but if the pumps can be the same, then yeah, we can reuse all the electrical that we already have, the generator, all that stuff that we've already designed. Obviously, all the SCADA input output can be reused. The spec book is not really going to change much. The structure might change a little bit. The building will probably be the same, but the wet wells might change. So I think it's a toss. It depends on exactly what the design looks like to basically double it. I'm just going off of what we did for Brambleton, because Brambleton was 1 million to 3 million gallons. And that was a similar commutator vault to what we have here, but it was 2 wet wells and it was 3 pumps with an option for a 4th. So if we do the same thing here, then we will have to change the dry well configuration. We will have to change the wet wells, but it would be mainly structural changes, if that helps you.
Okay, I know. It seems like we're getting out of the scope of this discussion now, since it's not. We're talking about something that may happen or not happen, and a whole bunch of studies will have to be done before that. I just want to make sure we don't build something that we're not going to use in the future. All right, thanks.
Mr. Sultan has a question.
Isn't it true that depending on how long this is delayed, equipment changes, all kinds of things change, and you may not be able to use the current design. Structures won't change, but equipment, electrical equipment, codes change. I mean, it's not going to be as easy as it sounds.
Right. They're going to have to review that kind of thing, I'm sure, because you're right. Sometimes the equipment that we have spec'd out in 2018 or 2019 might not be available in 2022.
All right, just a comment.
Is there anything else? Show you my recommended motion.
Can I get a motion? Well, I'll make the motion then. I move to move this motion to the full board. I'm thinking on a consent degree,
Jim Bonfield, second.
Can you get a roll call vote?
Yes, sir. Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll take the roll call vote. Mr. Sultan?
Yes.
Mr. Bonfils?
Right, there's a question.
Yes.
Ms. Ursakar?
So before I give my motion for this, I just wanted to understand, are we still moving forward with this?
Do you mean,
are we still moving forward with this to approve this amendment? I mean, because there's been some discussions about, if we don't need to move forward. I was just leaning on the conversation you had with Mark. So
basically this money is to pay HDR for work they've already done.
okay, yeah, okay. I got confused with, I got spiraled around here.
I know.
Okay.
If we when we do the design for the pump station that includes the Jlma, I'll have to come back to you and ask for a different task order.
Okay, and just for me, the only condition I had, and I had mentioned that previously, and I will, come back to that. I hope I don't have to, but if there is any documentation available for the work that's already been done, and for me to, be on the board and approve this this amendment, I would really like to see that documentation. It's really, really important, just for my own reference.
Sure.
Thank you.
Any other questions before we continue the roll call vote? Okay, Mr. Bonfils?
I vote yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
And Ms. Ursakar?
Yes, I vote yes as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Unanimous, sir. Thank you.
Next thing is the capital construction quarterly report.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, good. I think I've got control. So I'm here to present the third quarter report for capital construction. Okay. This is, I've got a pretty short agenda overall. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Rfp 5/Horsepen Run Sewer Project, and I'll update you on the Brambleton project. And then I'm going to move into a discussion about critical path scheduling, especially as it relates to the Broad Run expansion. And then I'll go over some quarterly performance numbers. Just as a quick note here, we do expect to complete these first two projects, the Horsepen Sewer and the Brambleton Pump Station, in this quarter. Just as a reminder on the Horsepen and Rfp 5 project, this is the largest non-planned or non-pump station project we've ever done at $28 million. It's 20,000 feet of sewer in this project. Roughly 80% of that sewer is on property owned by the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority. This project has 10 tunnels. 8 of those tunnels are on MWA property, and we've got 4 metro crossings as well. So it's a really large project for us. Oscar Renda is our contractor. The construction contract price with the change orders included is just under $29 million. We're 100% complete on the Rfp 5 portion, and you may recall that at the last quarterly report, I included a video that showed a pump around operation at the site that allowed us to bring that portion of the sewer into our service, and so we've been operating that now. And the only remaining work on the project is to perform the restoration work, and then all of the manholes get a special protective coating system installed. That's for service and corrosion protection. So that has not been done yet, but we're very close on that. The contractor has already demobilized the excavation equipment from the site. A little bit on the construction phase engineering services task order with Hazen. The task order amount is just under 1.6 million, and through September, we had spent roughly just a little under 1.1 million. So we're in really good shape with that task order. So we'll come in well under budget for that. Any questions before I move on?
What about the schedule? I didn't look at your table, but when?
Yeah, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit at the end, but I can tell you now that we have not reconciled all of the time extensions and delays to the project yet. There have been some COVID-related delays and some other things. So we will be working with the contractor on that. Yes, but we are a few months behind schedule on that.
All right.
Any others? Whoa. Uh-oh. Okay. It looks like I'm losing some service here, so I hope to get through this. I've got 2 photos here from the project, and this is at the Broad Run stream crossing. The photo on the left is the pipe where it goes under the stream, and in the background you may see some geotextile fabric that is placed at the stream banks. And at this location, the contractor has channelized the Broad Run stream so he can perform the work in that area. And all of the pipe under the stream will be concrete encased. And if you look closely, you'll see 3 workers in the trench. They're putting in the reinforcing steel around that pipe before they put in the formwork and then place the concrete to encase it. So that's the work to encase the pipe. And then the photograph on the right is at the same location. The work at this point has already been done, and you can see the contractor's temporary bridge across the Broad Run stream, which he constructed with jersey barriers and timber frames. Any questions before I move on? Thought I'd show you some of the tunneling details, and the depiction on the left is actually a detail from the construction drawings, which show the carrier pipe, which I've got that in red, and then the tunnel liner plate is in blue. And that entire space between the carrier pipe and the tunnel liner is going to be grouted. And that's why the contractor has to build the masonry wall that you see there in the detail and in the photograph on the right. So he has to build that wall, so as he's filling it with grout, it stops the grout. It's a backstop for the grout. And those pipes that you see along the top of the tunnel liner plate, those plastic pipes are for pumping in the grout into the area, into that, we call that the annular space around the carrier pipe. And I've got a photograph here of the grout as it's being filled or placed into that space through those pipes in the top of the tunnel liner plate. Mr. Sultan?
Well, how is the pipe bedded in that tunnel? I can't tell. Is it resting on that masonry wall, or how is it bedded?
I'm not exactly sure how they've attached it to the top of the tunnel liner plate, but it's tied up in some fashion to those ribs. That tunnel liner plate has ribs, and they somehow know that they've tied it to those ribs.
Are you talking about the carrier pipe is tied to the?
I'm
talking.
I think he was asking about the actual pipe itself. How is it bedded on the bottom of the tunnel?
Right.
How is the pipe? Oh, the pipe. Oh, it's got some spacers and there's some supports built into the tunnel itself. Is that what you're asking? The carrier pipe then?
So it's not bedded completely on the bottom of the tunnel. It's on the supports
Spacers.
that you're talking.
It's on support. Yeah.
Oh,
It's
okay.
on spacers.
Okay.
Yeah. There are supports under there, and there's another detail that shows that as well. But yeah, there's supports along that pipe of the carrier pipe to support it in the tunnel to keep it off the bottom. Right.
Okay. Just curious. Thanks.
Yep. Yep. Any other questions? Okay, the Brambleton Sewage Pump Station project, we are entering the testing and commissioning phase for the project, and we plan to begin that next week. I informed you at the last quarterly meeting about problems we're having with getting natural gas service to the site because the contract specified a natural gas emergency generator, but we will not have that service until the developer resolves some utility conflict issues associated with the proffer that he has offered, which is the widening of the Ryan Road itself. So in the meantime, we have placed a portable diesel generator at the site. It's one that Loudon Water already had that would work satisfactorily in this case. And we will be using that generator until we get the utility conflict issues resolved. So we will get through this contract with this portable diesel generator. And we hope to complete this job late next month, get to at least to substantial completion. I've got some information here on the submittal review cost from Dewberry, part of the construction phase task order. And we're almost completely through with submittals at this point as well. Any questions? Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the critical path method and just exactly what it is and how is it used and why it's important to us. And then I'll move into a description of the schedule for the Broad Run expansion project. We often use that term CPM, and I'm not really sure, what people's understanding of it is. So I do have a very brief little primer on it. I know that some of the members of the CIP committee have been through project management training and may have some understanding or background in critical path scheduling. And in as much as you do, this may be really elementary for you, but I often present this to the full board. So I want to make sure that people understand what we're talking about when we use these terms, critical path method. So in simple terms, a critical path method is a scheduling technique for complex projects where multiple trades are performing work at the same time. Concurrently. The CPMs include task dependencies and the durations as well. And the actual critical path itself is that longest continuous path in the schedule, which will indicate the minimum time required to complete a project. I've got a little animation here to illustrate a critical path, and it's just very simple again. But if the entire project is these multiple paths with these activities that are in the circles that are lettered A through I, the durations are given just above the circles. There are multiple paths through this project. And then the first path, which is in green, which is from activity A to C to F to finish, that's a 14-day duration for that path. The next path, which I've shown in purple there, has a 16-day duration. That's from activities from start to A to D to G to I and then to finish. I've got a path in blue that's also 14 days, A to C to G to I to finish. And then the last path through the project is that top path, which I've shown in red, which is 17 days. So if all of these activities are required for completion of the project, our critical path is actually the path from A to B to E to H, and that's 17 days. The other paths will have what we call float. Some people call that slack, that those don't have to be done exactly on time, but there is some slack time for those activities to be performed. The critical path itself, though, will have no float. Any questions on this very short example? Okay, so why do we want to understand the critical path? Well, as a contractor, it's a management tool, but for the owner, it's to monitor the status of the project to better ensure timely completion, to understand how delays and change orders may impact the work, and then it's also to mitigate delays and impacts. I do have one quick note here that in our contract, we require the contractor to submit monthly updates to the project schedule. And what may be the critical path this month may change next month depending on how that float is consumed. So sometimes a critical path can change over the course of a project. Our project for the Broad Run expansion includes 2,600 activities. It includes 6 milestones. And of those 2,600 activities, 80 of the activities are on the critical path right now. And that critical path is through existing facilities that are being modified or expanded to handle the additional flow. And this is important for us to know as the owner, and I'll show you that in plan. The BRBs are the biological reactor basins, and the MBRs are the membrane reactor basins. The takeaway is that our work as the owner in coordinating with the contractor in these areas will touch that critical path. So we need to be especially mindful of our coordination work to ensure that we are not responsible for delays in these areas and in these facilities, because this project is really important to us. Timely completion is really important for this project. Are there any questions? Okay, just a few photos of the work so far. The contractor has installed erosion and sediment control at the site and has begun the setup of the construction trailers at the site. So you can see some fencing on the left, and then those are utilities, water and sewer in the photograph on the right. Okay, so now I'll move into the performance of the existing projects. We completed one project in the third quarter. That's the Trap Rock HVAC project. We used very little contingency on that project, so that project, it went really well for us. Upcoming projects, at the board meeting last month or earlier this month, we talked about the Goose Creek Emergency Crossing project. We have gotten the signed contract back from Garney on that, and we will be executing that very soon. And so I will be reporting on that in my next quarterly report. We also have a small connection project, a water line connection project at the Guilford Station site. That will be with Madigan Construction. That was one that did not require board approval because of the size of the project. Okay, a little bit on the existing capital projects that are currently in construction. I mentioned earlier that we do have several projects that are behind schedule, and we have not reconciled project delays and time extensions yet for those, but I do want to report those as accurately as I can, and they are showing behind schedule now. And those are the 3 projects with asterisks: the Broad Run HVAC control project, the Rfp Horse Pen project, and the Building 70 roof project, which itself is almost done. I have one note to add to this is that of these 11 projects, we are anticipating completing 7 of them in the fourth quarter, and that will be a total of $39 million that we hope to complete this quarter. And I'll just camp out at this slide for a minute and let you look at those numbers. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer those.
It seems like COVID effects on the projects are minimal.
Really, they have been minimal overall. I mean, when you consider the other other industries, yes, it's been very small. Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Good presentation. You guys do a good job.
Thank you, Mr. Sultan.
Always last but never least is the monthly capital spending summary report. So if there are any questions, I can try to answer them.
No, I don't have any questions. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you.
Again, last but not least. Jewel, the agenda, I don't.
Yes, sir.
That was the last item, according to what I'm seeing here.
Yes, sir. So we just need to acknowledge there's a joint meeting on Tuesday, November 17th of the CIP and Finance Committee. And then if you'd like to call for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Yes, I'd like to call for a motion to adjourn the meeting. Do I get a motion?
This is Jim. I move to close the meeting.
I'll second it.
All right. And roll call vote, Mr. Sultan,
Yes.
Mr. Bonfils,
Yes.
Mr. Moody,
Yes.
Ms. Sursakar.
Yes.
Thank you. The meeting adjourned at 9:28 a.m.